What is going on, everyone? Welcome to this week's Pardon the Disruption. Based on the pregame and the show here, you guys are in for a treat this week. I promise you are. Real quick, I am your host, Matthew Potter. I am your short sale guy, hedge fund connection, co-founder of the Family Tree at Real Broker. If I can help bring value to your business, please reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. Also, wanted to go ahead and make this announcement. Most people know by now, but if you're just tuning in for the first time, wanted to let you know Pardon the Disruption now has its own YouTube channel. Go follow it on YouTube, subscribe so you can get in the chat and maybe have your question featured as our sixth question. Go follow Pardon the Disruption on YouTube. Going to go ahead and break down how we do things around here before we introduce our guests. We have 5 pre-selected questions that literally were done about an hour ago, so you know it's going to be fun today. 45 seconds for everybody to go ahead and talk about their point, then 2 minutes to chop it up. After that, we will have points awarded based on the best responses. We're going to go ahead and start out with introducing down in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, we have RJ Bates III.
What's up, guys? RJ Bates III. It's come to my attention after last week's brutal ending by Eric Brewer. The reason why he acted the way he acted is because he is actually a cerebral pelagic. And the reason why he is bald is because he has a prosthetic brain. And it's made from latex and cat shit. It's really just for show, much like Steve Train's business.
Why am I getting dragged into this?
Wow.
Why did I get dragged into this?
Yo, shout out to all the realtors, man.
Hey, be easy over there, CJ. Be easy. You got your time. All right. Like I said, based off that intro alone, you guys know what you're in for today. Next up, we have Mr. Disruptor himself, Steve. The business is for show. Train. Go ahead.
Yeah, 100% for show. We fund this entire thing through a nonprofit agency. I appreciate the love from everybody else. Steve Train Real Estate Disruptors. We here solve sales problems. We treat people respectfully, unlike RJ.
I don't know when that started, but glad to hear it, Steve. Thanks so much. All right, next up, coming to us from York, Pennsylvania, which apparently is the only town that Eric Brewer knows in that state. Go ahead and introduce yourself, boss.
I'm emotionally damaged right now. I'm not even sure how to. The whole, like, what was the first word you said? Cerebral? Like, what was it like?
Cerebral pelagic.
I was just done right there. It was like I just one-shot sniper kill.
And he signed off with that.
Wow. He literally just, he took his ball and went home. Next up, CJ, you with us, boss? Yeah, there we go. We got CJ. All right. Coming to us from Richmond, Virginia, we have Chris CJ Jefferson. Introduce yourself.
Chris Jefferson, Richmond, VA, the U, hands-off wholesaling, was out last week. Apparently it was pretty eventful. Hopefully we get, Eric back after that. But it's good to see everybody. Good to be back and looking forward to today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, hopefully Eric will join us on this first question. Let's go ahead and start it out. Question number 1 today. Should wholesalers have to disclose to a seller that they are wholesaling the property? Go ahead and start us off, RJ.
So I think this is an interesting topic right now because it's becoming more and more of a trend where more states are saying, hey, you do have to disclose this. I don't quite understand it, though, because it's not necessarily mandating that you have to disclose it up front. It's just prior to closing. So it's one of those things that could kind of just be slid in with the closing documents. Hey, sign this. We're disclosing that we assigned and we wholesaled this property. I don't think that they need to disclose it. I think this is an unnecessary step. If anything, if you want to try to, slow down the rate of wholesaling in your state, then make the assignment illegal like places like Illinois and North Carolina and Nebraska have done. Add some sort of regulation outside of just a blank, a one-page disclosure statement. I don't think that's going to get the end result that they're looking for.
All right. Like that you threw in the states that have already kind of thrown the roadblocks up there. Thanks for showing some prior knowledge there. We appreciate it, RJ. All right, Steve, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it should absolutely be disclosed, and it's something that we actually have inside our contract. This actually came down the pike, I want to say about a year ago in Arizona, right, where you had to disclose it, and we're like, okay, it's no big deal because we've already disclosed it. I think the biggest reasons why people may not disclose it is because they're afraid it's going to kill the deal. And I think it's really important that if you don't have the ability to move this at all, right, or to close on it at all, then I think you should disclose that you're wholesaling it. Right, because otherwise you're putting property under contract under false pretenses. But with that being said, I don't believe most people disclose because they're afraid it's going to hurt their ability to get the seller under contract.
Very true, very true. Here in Arizona, we've had that for about a year now. And honestly, if you're good at what you do and you follow through, it's really not an issue. It's really not. We're going to skip Frozen Brewer, and we're going to go over to CJ over here. CJ, what are your thoughts?
Look, it's such a ridiculous question, really. Disclosure, non-disclosure, who really cares? I think the more important conversation is, why? Because I know some people were trying to put this together years ago. It somehow fizzled out. Not somehow. It costs money, all right? But there's no legislative, nobody's lobbying on behalf of wholesalers for our interest with, state, local, federal government. And then on top of that, does everybody not realize that wholesaling exists in almost every single industry, right? When you go to try to trade in your car, right, or something like that, like you think the car dealership's keeping it. You think the person you get the mortgage from is not wholesaling the note to somebody else. I think the only caveat may be in many situations in wholesaling across industries, there's a guarantee or a full intent to buy an effort to wholesale it. Everything's like a double close. I think maybe that, but I think the bigger problem is, are we as wholesalers going to group up and protect our interest? Or if not, we're just going to be stuck in with whatever comes down the pipe.
I think if you look at wholesaling, right, it's kind of the evolution from flipping, right? Because it started off, it was just flippers doing it. And then wholesalers kind of came along where you can source the deal and sell it to a flipper and flip the contract for a fee. And back then, I think it was like $3,000 or $5,000 or maybe even $500 cash, right? Way before close. I think at that time it made a lot of sense, right? But right now with homeowners, if you're making a promise to somebody and you cancel because you couldn't sell it, technically that's fraud, right? Like we've had attorneys talk about this. If you're contracting the property and you cancel in your due diligence period because you couldn't sell it, you contracted it under false pretenses. But with that being said, I think the greatest problem where regulation is going to come down the pike is that we're getting properties under contract and then canceling 1 or 2 days prior to close of escrow. And look, this happens as well in traditional real estate, and no one cares, right? It pisses me the hell off, right? Because in Canada, you can't cancel just a few days prior to close. Normally, your earnest money goes hard about 3 days, right? They're canceling at close of escrow. The difference here, unfortunately, or the slight difference, is that it's all been disclosed.
What I love about your response is how you defeated your own argument.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, exactly. People cancel contracts in any course of business all the time.
But my point is, with wholesaling, if you disclose it, it's fine. The problem is when it's not disclosed and then you cancel, right? They're signing a contract under the expectation that it will close.
But that's
the same thing we do in real estate, though. If I'm selling a fix and flip, I just had this happen a couple of weeks ago. Day before closing, buyer hits us up, says they're backing out of the deal because their loan fell out of underwriting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Literally day before closing. I can't control the speed of the underwriter and all the other things on their side. I don't know how they don't get to that point until a day prior to closing. But what am I supposed to do? Right? It's like, hey,
whatever's written in the contract. But you knew that was a possibility.
Right. But so if you have a contingency clause in or not contingency clause, but if you have a clause in your contract that gives you a right to market the property, and it states that you may not close on the property for an inspection contingency financing contingency, what have you. I think the true problem is that people are unrepresented when it's direct to seller, and people lack education on the legalities of signing a contract. And so what happens is you've got FTC, consumer protection laws, all these different things. So when you've got people who are elderly, when you've got people that are disabled, when you got people that are marginalized or whatever the case might be, and they're in these situations where they feel like they interpreted the contract as no matter what you're closing on it, then that's when these frustrations get lifted. But I just don't think it's any different than any other business.
Steve, my question to you is, I go to a homeowner, I say, sign here, sign this disclosure that says that I'm going to wholesale the property. My cash buyers come walk it and say, yeah, I don't believe in those comps because those comps are from 2 months ago, plus the roof, plus the HVAC. I can't do it, and I terminate. How does this disclosure help the homeowner at all? It's kind of, again, it's just a pointless piece of paper that they're signing. I don't see how it helps your argument at all.
I mean, if you look at the contract, right? It's what's on the paper, right? It's in the four corners. But there's also an element for us to be in contract. There has to be a meeting of the minds, and a meeting of the minds is basically you and I agree on one thing, and we're going to put it all in writing, right? What I'm arguing here, what I'm suggesting here, is that there is not a meeting of the minds, and that's where the problem is. I'm buying your house. I'm promising you I'm going to close on closing day, and then I can't wholesale it to Eric, and I cancel on you. That puts you in a really bad spot. All we're saying is, hey, RJ, price you want, I don't think I can be your buyer. But, I got this other guy in York, Pennsylvania. He buys a lot of deals. If I can bring him along and he can pay the price you want, are you good with that? That's how we're disclosing that.
I guess I'm still not seeing the reason why that needs to be disclosed. What is the reason why we want to disclose that to the homeowner? Because
But that's what we're all doing at all times when we sell anything. Anytime you go to sell anything, you're opting into the assumption the person is going to close on the transaction. There's not 100% success rate on people who make commitments to buy things. Right? That's but all right, but here, what defines the communication, right? Like, is it, hey, we need this to be a verbal communication. I know it's written in the contract, but hey, can we make it verbal? So if you verbally
flip it around, why wouldn't you do it? Why would we not do it?
Because it's just one more piece of paper and it's pointless.
So now we have two. You have a one-page agreement and a disclosure. That's just too much for you. You're out.
It doesn't
add a line into the contract.
Here's what's going to happen, right? Here's what's going to happen. As with anything, people will just simply work around it. Double closes will become more prevalent. Transactional funding opportunities will become more prevalent. And nobody will give a shit about that second document. People would just eat the cost that it costs to double close, a couple of grand, and they'll just walk right around it, and nobody will give a shit, and we'll be at the exact same spot. So that's why it doesn't matter.
But Chris, I would argue that's a good outcome.
Wholesalers are just going to go find title companies that say, I'll just stuff it in the title paperwork at the end. And then just the
yeah, but I think you're missing the point is that's what happens after the seller has agreed. Versus if you have to disclose that your true intent is to wholesale it, and that if you're unsuccessful, you're not buying it, how many less sellers would opt into that agreement if it had to be disclosed? I don't think on the back end of it, it really changes whether you double close or any of that.
Yo, when we hear the buzzer, we're done. All right, so this is what I'm going to say on this. CJ finished strong on that, but here's a unintended consequence of what you just talked about, though, CJ. If you are looking at making a profit, are you going to try to continue to make that same amount of profit? And if you have to double close, who are you going to try to get your money from? Is it from the buyer, or are we offering less to the seller now?
People are going to obviously offer less to the seller. People are going to go back and retrade.
So the seller's harmed by this.
I think they could be harmed more. Because what happens is you have people that are in very bad situations, and a day before closing, you've already planned exactly what you're doing with every single dollar that I'm sending over to you or you expect to get. And when I call you up a day before closing, I say, hey, EB, I need you to take a $10,000 price reduction or I can't close tomorrow. A lot of people take that 10K reduction, man.
Yep. All right. No, I really like this question. Like I said, for everybody watching, it is going to be good today. I am going to go ahead and throw the point to CJ just because he finished strong. I'm not going to lie. Everybody was good.
Did you say strong or wrong? I'm not sure I heard you right.
Strong. Calm down over there. Calm down over there, Steve. Don't make me come in there and give you a hug. All right.
He's mocking your speech. The Trangalangs are out, man. The
it's gonna get a little fuzzy today. All right. Question number 2. Do the majority of entrepreneurs have a fear of making 8 and 9 figures? Start us off, CJ.
No, they just don't know how and they're not willing to do the work. No, everybody wants to make 8 or 9 figures. People just don't want to do the work to get it. They don't want to have to go through the team building process. They don't want to have to go through delegation. They don't want to have to go through the continued education to be able to actually get to that point. So instead, they fantasize about it like it's a Powerball lottery ticket at the water cooler inside the office, and they don't do shit. They just get happy and accept exactly where they're at, and they go and brag to their buddies. Like, because I ran into this guy the other day. He's a neurosurgeon, and he's telling me how he's a neurosurgeon and all of that. And I'm just staring at him, and I'm thinking to myself, damn, I make so much more money than you. Right. So, like if people are willing to do the work, but most people just aren't. So it's not fear-based, it's action-based.
Jesus, I can't argue with that. That's actually 100% spot on. You got to do the work. All right, RJ, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way. I do think most people are afraid of making that kind of money. I think most people do not know anyone that's made that kind of money in their lifetime, like truly made that. Not, hey, I was a part of a business that had 8 figures in revenue, like actually making that in their bank account. I think the fear of the unknown of what that looks like, what does their life look like, the implications of the pressure that comes along with that. I think there is a lot of entrepreneurs that fear that. Case in point, over 200 people I've interviewed on my podcast, and the majority of them always want to talk about working themselves out of their business to have freedom. When you start talking about working in an 8 to 9 figure business, that doesn't sound like you're going to have freedom of time. That sounds like you're going to have a lot of pressure, a lot of people to manage, and a lot of responsibility. I think that's where the fear comes from.
All right. I mean, I see your counter argument, but I also think if you're making 8 or 9 figures, you can put the proper framework in place to go ahead and alleviate a lot of that headache. Not saying there's not headache, but just throwing that out there. Steve,
Potter,
what are your
called a CEO?
Exactly, CEO, aka Potter. All right, go, Steve.
So I mean, I think that's an interesting question. To what RJ's saying, I don't think necessarily that they have a fear of doing it. It's like if you're making a good amount of money, how much more do you need, right? I see a lot of people that they sabotage themselves, and I do think there's a certain element of fear that's getting in their way, where once they get to a certain amount of success, that's their thermometer. They don't want to get any more. They're afraid they're going to screw it up. So I do think that some people, I wouldn't say a majority, like the question, I do think there are some people that have a fear of success that they will self-sabotage, but I don't think there's a lot of people that have that fear, and the people that are happy to retire or kind of sell off to the sunset because their business hit a certain level, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's why we got into the business. We got into the business for time freedom and financial freedom. It wasn't to hit 8 figures and 9 figures net. It was so we could do whatever the hell we want, whenever we want, with whoever we want, on our own terms. At least that's why I got into the business.
All right, fair enough, Steve. I can see the point there. All right, Brewer, what are your thoughts?
Potter was struggling to respond to your answer there, dude. He didn't know what to say. There was just this awkward silence there. He should have just said that sucked. But let me just put this out into the world. I have no fear of making 9 figures, right? So I just want to let the world know that if that's out there and it's in my vicinity, like I will fully embrace the opportunity. However, I think what CJ's saying is that everybody wants to make 8 or 9 figures. No one wants to earn it. I think what RJ's saying is a lot of times when we imagine what it takes to earn 8 or 9 figures, some people are intimidated by that. There's a friend of mine, Frank Cava, that used to say, heavy is the crown, right? And we imagine what the lavish lifestyle may be to have all of this money, but it does come with a tremendous amount of responsibility. Some people are unable to withstand that responsibility. And if I was 25 years old, I generally would have had a fear of making 8 figures because I may have killed myself with 8 figures worth of money and the lack of responsibility I had at 25 years old. So I don't think most people are scared of actually making the money. They're intimidated by the work that it takes to earn that and then keep it. And then what's expected of someone that's worth $10 million. You generally are expected to act differently and behave differently in society.
Well, since Potter forgot his role after my question, he decided he wanted to act like he was a panelist and say, if you're making 8 or 9 figures, you could just go hire someone to run your business. Steve can, since it seems like Steve and I agree, how many people have we seen in our industry start to gain traction, go out and hire someone to start running their business, and the next thing you know, they're working for someone else 2 years later because the business crumbled? It's not as simple as, hey, I'm just going to go hire someone and now you run this 8-figure operation. That's how you end up making reels in someone else's office.
It's way big. It's way harder to turn over an 8-figure business than it is in most cases to be the person that runs it. I think most people fail when they try and, to RJ's point, delegate it or turn it over to somebody. That's, in my experience, right in the little world that I live in York, Pennsylvania, way more people fail at trying to turn over a successful business. And like Steve and I talk about this a lot, like irresponsibly delegate. It's like, okay, I hired a CEO, I hired a COO, I hired a sales manager. I'm all done now, right?
I'm in the owner seat.
Take over. Yeah, it just
I'm in the owner seat. I'm traveling around the country. I'm doing whatever the hell I want whenever I want. Yeah, there's so much responsibility. The challenges you have when you're doing a deal a month is different than challenges you have doing 5 deals a month. It's different than the challenges you have at 30 deals a month, right? And then to get to a point where you're worth 8 or 9 figures, you're going to have challenges that there's no books we've talked about, right? There's no specific webinars that I was like, hey, you want to figure out how to go from 8-figure net worth to 9-figure net worth? There are very, very few people having these kinds of conversations.
But I think that's all fear of the work, right? Ultimately, however you want to slice it up, people's fears are rooted in the requirement it takes to get level to level to level. The requirement it takes to get to 6 figures, we're all educators, we're all influencers, we all got coaching programs. We all see it every single day. We see the gap of people that can't get from 0 to 100K. Mm-hmm. But then the person that gets from 0 to 100K, what's the first word they say every single time? Oh, I want to scale. Exactly. They're like, oh, I'm ready to scale. You're not fucking ready to scale shit. But that's what they think, right? That's what they think. That's what they think. All right. And so then therein lies the next problem, right? Is that now you've got to get from 100K to 250 to 500 to $1 million. And then when you're at $1 million, it's like, how do I get to 2 million? Each level requires new levels of additional work, additional thought, additional delegation, additional team building. And most people just simply aren't willing to do that. And that's where their fear is rooted, not in having 8 or 9 figures. People aren't scared, Steve, when they go get a lottery ticket. When they're like, oh, the Powerball is 1.5. What would you buy if you won? Nobody's scared to go buy the lottery ticket.
I would buy friends. I would buy real friends.
That's not 9 figures, though. And no matter what, even in your answer of saying they're not afraid of it, you're saying they are. They're afraid of something. They're afraid of the work that comes along with it, the responsibility that's going to come along with it.
Oh,
yeah, but not the money itself.
It's the fear of making 8 and 9 figures, not enjoying it. Of course.
Look, RJ, you do a great job, and I just want to applaud you as the king closer. You do a great job of like sidestepping fact. All right. You know, you just you do a good job at it, right? It's like you just add this little twist on it.
CJ speaking from personal experience, right? He absolutely fears the work required to be an 8-figure net worth guy.
100%. I'm gonna go work at Titanium. All right.
No fear of making 8 figures over there. You're in a safe place, CJ. You have to sell like 90,000 deals at $6,000 a piece to do it.
Jesus. Wow. I'm gonna go ahead and say that a week off definitely helped CJ out over here because he just went absolutely brutal on this. So yeah, points to CJ on that one. Also, just gonna throw this out there. I agree with Brewer though. Like, if 8 or 9 figures is out there, I happily welcome that into, my life.
I don't want there to be any confusion. Let's clear up all confusion.
Yeah, all confusion. RJ, I know that there's no confusion on your side either. You want 8 or 9 figures, but insulting the judge is not going to get you points, bro.
Not
it never will.
Play.
I promise.
Yeah.
I promise it won't.
I'll gladly accept my shutout this week. It's coming every question, Potter.
Great. I look forward to our discussion. All right, real quick, Steve, go ahead and read this week's announcement from our sponsor.
Yeah, if you guys have ever run PPC ads, you know what headache it is and nightmare it is to keep up with the latest changes. I used to run my own PPC campaigns. Then I found Bateman Collective. I was relieved to find a PPC partner who actually understands the real estate industry and are true experts in PPC and making PPC work. So do what I did, get a free consult with Bateman, see how they can make your PPC work and generate more leads for you. Visit batemancollective.com/PTD and get your free consultation.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. All right. Question number 3. In honor of Mamba Day, how do you incorporate his Mamba mentality into your business? Start us off, CJ.
First and foremost, man, shout out to the greatest of all time, Kobe Bryant, 24-8. Legendary guy, man. Don't be in my DMs talking about Mike Jordan. I don't give a shit. Shout out to Kobe. Look, my good friend EB, all right, sent me this. All right. Mamba mentality. Let me help everybody out. Learn to love the hate, embrace it, enjoy it. You earned it. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and everyone should have one about you. Haters are a good problem to have, a phenomenal problem, by the way. All right. Nobody hates the good ones. They hate the great ones. Shout out to my brother EB. That's how you implement Mamba mentality in your business. You don't give a shit what anybody's got to say. You do what you need to do. You lock in. You take on opinion. You take on hate. You take on whatever. You stay locked in on your goals and you get them accomplished, man. Shout out to Kobe Bryant.
I mean, you didn't kind of answer the question there, though, of how you incorporate that into your business, though, bro. Well, don't worry, you got 2 more minutes. No, you can't just show a picture of a gift from Brewer.
I just read it. That's how you implement it, man. That's how you implement it.
All right. RJ, what about you?
I agree with CJ. I mean, Kobe, I don't know about greater than Michael, but one of the greatest of all times. And I absolutely love how he put in more work than anyone else. And that to me is the part of the Mamba mentality that I probably resonate with. Looking at, hey, I'm going to make sure that I perform at a higher level than anyone else in this industry. I'm going to put in the work to make sure that I do that, even if I'm not there today. And then trusting that once you put in those reps, once it's game time, that you can perform. And I know we always joke about it, but it just most recently happened. I mean, you look back at what happened at Closers Olympics, where it was difficult for me to get deals there on my rounds. I went last. I was calling in the middle of the night on weekends, and I trusted the reps that I had put in. And I think that's the part of the Mamba mentality that I probably resonate the most with.
Shout out to RJ, 4 weeks in a row bringing up Closers Olympics. We appreciate that over there.
All year, baby.
Oh, let's do it, dude. Can't wait for the promos for 24. Let's go. All right, Steve, what are your thoughts?
I would say the way we incorporate the Mamba mentality is we put in the work, right? We do what it takes. I'm not necessarily. I've said this before. I feel like I'm kind of like Rudy. You guys all laughed about it, but I will outwork anybody. I will work harder. I will put in the reps, and I will work on my craft. And so for me, I feel totally good in training people on sales because I've worked so hard on sales. And as far as doing whatever is required right now, whatever is required in our organization, I am sitting in that seat. I am doing more different things today than I've ever done in the past because right now that's what the company is requiring of me, right? So I'm willing to put in the work and I'll do whatever it takes, whatever the company requires for us to win.
I love that Rudy speech right there. That was very Rudy-esque. I love it. All right, Brewer, what about you?
Couple notes here. One, if you haven't noticed, you could literally ask a question about the price of groceries. RJ will figure out a way to tie in his win on the closers. RJ, what do you think about the price of milk? Well, it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I just recently won back in the Olympics. So number two, shout out to CJ. It makes me proud to see that he keeps that picture there. But bro, you couldn't hang it. It's sitting down on the ground. It took
I got a bunch of stuff I got to hang right here, man. I got to
dig it out from under like extension cords and stuff. So, but like, I think for me, Kobe was one of the greatest athletes and inspirational figures of my life, and I don't know that that'll change. And the word mentality is what really sticks out to me, right? His work ethic and all that stuff was world class, but he just had a different way that he approached everything. I don't know if you ever read his book, The Mamba Mentality, right? But from like the way he approached injury, the way that he approached preparation, the way that he rallied and challenged the people around him was completely different. So the way that you incorporate the Mamba mentality is he had a clear purpose in mind. He wanted to be the greatest of all time. So everything he did had to align with being the greatest of all time. Do I practice like the greatest of all time? Am I a teammate like the greatest of all time? So I think the clarity is you have to drill down into your organization the purpose behind why the business is there in the first place, and then attach that to each individual in the organization to have them show up and play and prepare the way that the Mamba did.
Yeah, spot on, man. I agree 100% with Eric. Because it's the hard work, but it's the discipline. It's that level of striving for greatness where you're constantly working on your craft. Like whatever your deficiencies are, you're willing to constantly work on them. For me in my business, like any weak point I've got, which are plenty, I'm in a literal constant state of learning. How can I figure out how to get better about this? How can I understand how to do this better? How can I become more educated here? And a lot of people, and this is what I think really what Eric is saying, the Mamba mentality truly represents, is who's willing to dig that deep. Everybody has greatness in them, but who's willing to go in there and get it? That's the question.
I don't know if everyone has greatness in them. I think that's
everybody's got it, but everybody can't go in there to get it.
I mean, clearly you didn't see half of the people competing at the closers.
There it is.
I think one of the things that resonated with me early on was when Kobe talked about the lack of friendships that he had in his life. And essentially he said he viewed that as a weakness and that he didn't have time for it because he was focused on his goals and what he wanted to accomplish. And for me, that I always thought that there was something wrong with me, that there
still
there
believe
is.
that.
Yeah. I knew that was coming. But learning more and more, like, hey, there's a certain personality type that has a desire for what they want to strive for, and whether or not they achieve it, or it's the level of greatness that Kobe achieved, or the level of greatness, like in CJ's point, that individual person can achieve. That those can be two different things, but I resonated with that aspect of Kobe probably more than anything, where it's like, hey, I'm focused on what I'm wanting to accomplish, and because of that, I'm not going to go out and have a ton of friends in my life.
So it seems like 4 of us here embrace the Mamba mentality, and then the 5th person has the poster on the floor. So,
Damn, Steve's taking shots right there.
He had like a half-drink glass of iced tea sitting on top of it before he brought it in.
No. I'm waiting
between two tall horses. Like,
no. I've been really kind of waiting on RJ.
You ain't getting no damn tree from me.
No. I've been waiting on RJ to get to the point where, they got this looming recession. The train's running out of plenty of coal, right? What's happening is I'm waiting where I can get RJ on the handyman services on Thumbtack. And, I can get him over here to get these things mounted up.
Oh man,
Titanium thumbtack.
I love it. Before he gets on Thumbtack, we are going to give the points to RJ on that one. He definitely came with it. We appreciate the insight and hard work there. Next up, question number 4. What's a common mistake beginning wholesalers or people in real estate make when they start spending, when starting to spend money on marketing? Start us off, RJ.
I think it's not having a process with their marketing efforts, understanding what they're doing. They go out and they see CJ talk about something on a free webinar, and they think that's enough to go back and implement that into their business as a business strategy. Whereas I'm sure if you were to look into CJ's education program, there is in-depth, hey, this is what you need to be doing for marketing. And they take bits and pieces and try to become a jack of all trades. I saw a post the other day on Facebook where someone said, hey, I'm doing one thing of marketing. Now I want to move on to something else. What should I do? It should flow within your business. You should have a process there as to why you're doing it with intentionality, and also built around the skill sets within your team. And if you're not doing that, then you're probably just going to be wasting your marketing dollars.
Shout out to RJ promoting CJ over there. I don't know. That's like a first time that I dig that.
Shout out to Bates, man. Shout out to Bates.
That's right. Shout out to Titanium Thumbtack.
Free webinars came out, and then it just had to flow for the rest of the time.
There we go. All right, Steve, what are your thoughts?
A lot of what RJ said. So I think, as far as the process goes, the things to look at, making sure that you're tracking the phone numbers. You know where the lead source is coming from. You got the answer rate. Something I learned from Eric is making sure you have a good answer rate and making sure you're doing everything you can to answer 90+% of your calls. Understanding how to track your return on investment. I used to have no problems whatsoever spending money on marketing. The problem was I was P.T. Barnum. I didn't know where the business was coming from, right? So I think the ability to answer the calls at a 90% clip, knowing where the calls are coming from, and then having an ROI calculator to making sure that you're actually getting return for each marketing channel. And then the last thing is a cash conversion cycle, knowing that when I spend $1 on PPC, when's it coming back in my bank account? When I spend $1 in direct mail, when's it coming back in my bank account?
There we go. That might be the most insightful thing you've ever said on here, Steve. And we thank you for that. We do.
I got the questions an hour before the show.
Absolutely. I saw you studying them in the hallway. We appreciate that. All right, Brewer, what are your thoughts?
I think Steve made a lot of good points, but like at a beginner level, I don't know that I want somebody worried about their cash conversion cycle or maybe necessarily their answer rate. I think, in my opinion, the single biggest mistake beginners make is they go the cheapest route, right? Whether it's like texting, cold calling, and they get caught up in this cost per lead, right? And it's like, I'm generating Facebook leads for $12 and you need 174 of them to get an appointment, right? And then you need 5 appointments to get a contract. Assuming you're not, starting from zero and you're a beginning wholesaler, but you have some capital, I would go towards the highest quality lead source possible. And if that was $1,000 for a PPC lead, but I got 1 in every 4 PPC leads to convert to a $25,000 deal, it's a 6x return. And I had to field 4 phone calls. not 400 text messages that got forwarded to me by a Filipino VA in pajamas at 3 a.m. Right. So like, I think the biggest mistake they make is that everybody sells to, no money needed, no money required, no cost leads. And they start off with cheap leads. And I think you get what you pay for. Marketing is no different than anything else.
You just triggered my trauma, man. I just heard the roosters crowing in the background and everything.
Shout out to you, Sheena. You keep up those dramas.
Keep voting in the comments for RJ.
Damn, Brewer just saw a lot of people right there. All right. What about you, CJ? What are your thoughts?
Look, all these answers were great. All right. But they're not right. Okay. And I say this respectfully because look, I've worked with over 4,000 new people trying to get into wholesaling. Here's the most common mistake people make when it comes to spending money on marketing is they don't spend any money. That's the most common mistake. All right. What people do is they go and say to themselves like, "Oh, I'm going to get a list of 100 sellers. Let me get a list of 250. I'm gonna make 10 cold calls. I'm gonna make 100 cold calls." Now you got to go spend some actual money, and to be able to get to a point of being able to do that, you got to have an actual plan of what you're spending. All right, how many records are you going to get? What is the actual list that you're trying to pull data down on? Right now, we've got like I call it like this copy and paste type of thing that's happened in the industry. RJ was kind of touching on it, where everybody is simply trying to find something somewhere else to copy and paste instead of just doing the thing they need to do to execute on the business. So I'd love to see more people stop making the common mistake of spending a reasonable amount of money to start their business. Why they don't is because most people are trying to use the least amount of money possible that they have to start a business. And that's not how businesses work.
To recap CJ's answer, he said he has coached 4,000 new wholesalers, and the number one mistake he's seen them make is they don't spend money on marketing after he coached them. Is that correct?
You know what? I got this. RJ, I got this thing, right? It's like I'm gonna do it for you. Let me help you out, right? I'm a giver, right? I read the book The Go Giver, so I'm a constant giver. Let me try to assist. It's not that they're not spending enough money on marketing at all times. The problem is they'll start spending a small amount of money on marketing, and then they'll go see you on Closes Olympics, scratching you away somehow to a win, right? And you'll say, "Oh, these are PPC leads," and then they'll say, "Oh, let me go spend some money on PPC." They don't know that you should be spending at minimum 15 to 20,000 if you want to do PPC business. They don't know if you want to do direct mail that you need to be spending a minimum of $500 to $7,500 a week for it to be a viable marketing strategy for you. They don't know that. And so they see these things like Eric said, and they say, "Oh, $12 per lead on Facebook." I saw somebody say that I could do that. And so instead of spending money on just buying data and getting on the phone and calling the data, they'll go then try to run some ads on Facebook and say, "Oh, I'll spend $150 on Facebook ads." That ain't going to get you nowhere, man.
I mean, I agree with that. I also agree with what Eric said. I mean, going the cheapest route, that is an epidemic in our business. I mean, because part of it has to do with the fact that these educators are going out and saying you can get into this business without using any of your own money, and here's how you can generate leads for cheap. That's part of it. I mean, there is a certain level of that's how they're being taught to do this as well. Cold calling, SMS, even though some of those things are outdated and not working as well anymore.
I think also, though, you got to look at most of the people that are getting into wholesaling. It's not like everyone's coming in with $5,000 in their bank account, right? Like wholesaling is not one of those things that I want to grow up one day and become a wholesaler. Wholesaling is one of those things that right now it seems to be, I see this guy talking on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. I want to do that instead of what I'm doing today. And I think for most of the people where it's appealing, having a large bank account is not in alignment with the avatar who wants to quit a job to get into wholesaling.
Yeah, that was absolutely great. I love that round. Gonna give it over to Brewer there. Clearly, he's got some experience with 174 Facebook leads for every one contact. That's an amazing return on investment there.
Takes 5 appointments for him to get a contract too.
Jesus. All right, real quick before question 5, just wanted to read this announcement from another one of our sponsors. This question will be sponsored by the Family Tree of Real Broker. If you are looking to make a change in your real estate business, check out therealfamilytree.com and schedule your collaboration call with us. We will help you grow your real estate business. All right, next up, question number 5 for today. We have, I don't know if anybody's going to have an opinion on this one. Is wholesaling deals you find on the MLS the best way to get started? Let's go ahead and start us off here, Brewer.
Man, this is a sensitive subject. I think CJ might go full Mamba mode on this question, right? Someone's obviously struck a chord with him, but it may be. It's not for me, right? I think if you have marketing figured out and you understand how to talk to sellers, adding a real estate agent to the mix dilutes your ability to influence a seller's decision. They are effectively a cock blocker, right? Like that is the definition of a cock blocker in a real estate transaction is often the list agent. But that's your job, right? As the list agent, your job is to protect your seller's financial interests, right? So often getting an offer from an out-of-state wholesaler with no deposit, 90 days due diligence is probably not the right thing for your seller to do. For someone that's not great at marketing, I saw software the other day that can blast out 1,200 offers in like 10 minutes. So if I don't want to spend money on marketing and I don't want to really mess with like the emotional roller coaster of dealing direct with seller, that may be a great way to get started. Listen, I think there's this misconception that you can't actually get a good deal in the MLS. You can. If a house is worth 300 and I get a realtor to agree to sell it to me for their client to 125, I can go wholesale that for 145. It's still a good wholesale deal. It would not be the way that I want to get started, but if someone wants to invest in an outside market, they don't want to do direct to seller, and they don't want to spend a bunch of money, it could be a good way to get started.
All right. I'm looking at RJ's face over here. I don't know what he's smiling about. He must be excited. He's going after CJ on this one.
Someone left the door open in the men's room while peeing, and he caught it.
There we go.
I saw him lick his lips twice. And, he's been blushing the whole time. So clearly, someone's using the powder room.
This might be the episode that officially gets us canceled. All right.
This is our new YouTube channel.
CJ, what are your thoughts on this subject? I'm interested to see if you have any.
It's a great supplemental business vertical. It's a terrible singular business vertical. All right. Anybody who's telling somebody who's brand new in real estate with no experience to try to go wholesale deals off the MLS is selling you something. What nobody can show me is at least 15, 20 people that are consistently getting deals a month with that information, right? Like how many people can a market absorb, right? Everybody doesn't live in Phoenix, Arizona, in a major metro area. It's a bunch of people that somehow are tucked away over in York, PA. All right. And so how many people can reasonably make offers in York, PA on MLS on market deals and try to wholesale them? It's just not a realistic business model that people can actually achieve. What's often not discussed in this is how are people going to provide proof of funds? All right. People have confusion in understanding the one pager that Eric was talking about. How are they going to understand the 10, 12 pagers with disclosures? All right. So there's just a lot of caveats in it that I think is just bad to recommend it to people as a way to get started. What's dangerous is people, I'm an internet marketer. What's dangerous is people don't want to be honest that they're also internet marketers. And instead of just saying that they're marketing to people and that they know the people out here that are searching for the easy button, like we talked about earlier, and the most easiest thing. And as marketers, they're marketing to that hope and that dream. And that's why they're saying to do that. I think it's a bad way to try to run your business starting out. That's what I got to say. I'll jump in when we got more time.
There we go. CJ coming in with a little fire on this one. Here it comes. All right, RJ, let's see that smile. What you got for us on this one?
Yeah, absolutely not the way to start your wholesaling business. And this is coming from someone that for the first 2.5 years, that's how I started my wholesaling business, because that's what I was taught, right, by an internet marketer. Internet marketer said, hey, you're supposed to go get deals off the MLS. This is how you dispo them. It's basically like they taught me how to ride a bike by putting me in a go-kart. And then all of a sudden one day I learned that I don't know what I'm doing. I don't do any marketing. I don't ever talk to sellers. I don't know how to do essentially the first 50% of this business. I didn't know how to do. I was just shooting offers out. And when they got accepted, then it was all about dispositions. That was my wholesale business. And because of that, when the market dried up here in Dallas-Fort Worth and around the country, where you couldn't do that anymore, there was a market shift and we couldn't wholesale off the MLS, we were handicapped. We had to find another way to do it, and we had to essentially start over by learning how to go direct to seller and actually become a wholesale organization.
You heard it here first. RJ Bates has confirmed that he was handicapped. There you go. Primarily in business. All right, Steve, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I don't know if this is the best way to get started, but I think it's definitely a viable model. You know, we got Ryan Zolan with Agent Investors, and I know he's got a lot of successful students in his program, and he has success himself in wholesaling. As a matter of fact, it's actually how Jamil and I first got connected, right? I was the realtor. He was calling me to wholesale deals, and he wholesaled the deal that I couldn't sell, that I personally own, was not getting as much money on the MLS. So is it a way to get, is it the best way to get started? I wouldn't say it's the best way to get started. I think it's a viable model. I think at the end of the day, the most important skill for all of us is how to get in touch with a motivated homeowner. I think that is the skill you got to focus on, and everything else will take care of itself. You can get really good at that.
Hey, note should be taken there that if you do start wholesaling deals in the MLS, call Steve Trang as the list agent, because you're very likely to be able to sell it for more than what he has it listed for and has been unable to sell it. So maybe we should start putting out motivated agent list, right? Where you just target like
I'm a motivated agent.
Yeah, agents who can't sell.
Yeah.
And you just specifically target their listings. You pay full price. You send out a couple text messages and collect a $15,000 fee.
Thank you for that, Eric.
Here's one of the problems with going to, direct to agent or buying off the MLS is that you are putting your business, the control of the business, in someone else's hands. You don't control the deal flow because you're limited to what someone else goes out and pays marketing dollars to get the listings and then put it on the MLS. And outside of that, you don't really have any control over your business. That's the part that, for me,
I would disagree with that.
More than anything.
I would disagree with that, RJ. I would say those that are having success in wholesaling off the MLS are not targeting realtors that are good at their job, right? They're targeting realtors that are getting listings by chance. So they're not really spending marketing. So what I would say is a person that's starting, if you're going to go this direction, what's the trade-off? The trade-off is you don't have to spend a lot of money on marketing, right? But on the downside, you've got to negotiate against professional negotiators all day, every day, right? Every realtor is a professional negotiator. So you're trading. I don't have to.
Except for Steve.
They're not
except for Steve.
Hold on. Wait. Yeah, hold on a second, man. Steve, let me just ask a question. If you were looking to buy an item, any item, all right, are you looking to buy from the person who owns the item, or the person that just happens to be a friend or an advisor of some sort to the person who owns the item? Who would you prefer to speak to about the item that you're trying to buy?
Direct seller. I agree with you. Direct seller is the best approach. I'm saying this is the trade-off for going direct to MLS.
Yeah, but you can't run a business just solely going direct to MLS. Maybe some people can in certain markets, but it's only going to be short-lived. It's the same people. You know who tells you to do this? The same people that run around and say that Airbnb is a business. It's not. It's just a supplemental business revenue stream that you can have, but it shouldn't be your core focus of how you generate revenue. Like we have to be honest about the fact that we're marketers. Why am I the only person always out here saying I'm a marketer? Right? Like we have to just be honest sometimes. We're marketing to people and we're trying to
Why
market
do we
to
have to
them
be
easily.
honest? We're marketers, but we don't have to be honest that we're wholesalers.
Ooh.
We are being honest that we're wholesalers. It's in the contract. It's a disclosure on the contract. What
That
we talked about
by
earlier.
far, that was Steve's greatest PTD moment right
It
there.
really was. It
And
really
you know what's so
was.
crazy, RJ? He's still wrong. Because look, that's what's crazy. Because if it's in the disclosure, it's like, oh, let me make sure everybody's verbally saying, like, come on. Steve, you would always want to go direct to seller. This isn't a good viable business to just wholesale off the MLS and tell. You know how much reach you have? How many views did you get last month, Steve?
400,000.
All right. So imagine 400,000 people in the US saying to themselves, I'm going to go wholesale on the MLS.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going to really actually go?
I mean, I can hear the realtor complaints. They hate wholesalers.
Imagine the complaints and what they're going to be doing at NAR legislative wise when that starts to pick up a lot of steam. When we're sitting here complaining about them adding the second page to a contract.
That steam's already picked up. I don't know. That steam's already here.
Yeah, but I'm saying we're talking about them adding a second page disclosure to a contract. Imagine what's going to come for this.
CJ, to your point, if 400,000 people in just 1 month listen to that and a small percent decide they want to make that their business, what happens is that there's going to be an astronomical amount of properties that are locked up that never get sold, that then get terminated. But guess what? It's all a part of the MLS. There's realtors involved. So it's hilarious to me that you're saying, hey, wholesalers need to come disclose, but we're completely okay with this happening on the MLS with people that don't know what they're doing.
When agents are doing the same thing, they're running around locking up people's properties with 12-month listing agreements, knowing they can't even get the property sold. They just want pictures and videos they can throw on Facebook and put their party trays out from Kroger and hold open houses.
I'm still waiting for my Kroger tray.
The Kroger tray entered the chat.
Yeah, let's just be real. Let's just be honest, man.
All right. First and foremost, I don't lock anything up for longer than 3 months on a listing agreement because I sell my shit. So we're going to go ahead and put that on record. That's how that works. I knew that this one was going to bring some fire. Not going to lie. I like what everybody had to say, but particularly CJ and RJ, I'm actually going to give both of you guys a point on that, mainly because RJ's also lived it, started it, and then realized, like, yo, this isn't just it. Like, we need more consistency.
Hold on one second there, Potter.
Nope.
CJ, do you know how right we were? We were so right that Eric and Steve didn't even get one vote in the chat. That's how right we were, bro.
I mean, it's
more VAs. My bad. I'll hire more VAs.
Cock-a-doodle-doo. All right.
Some pajama-wearing VAs to go vote for me. I apologize, RJ. I'm embarrassed by this.
Jesus. Okay, we got sixth question. This is coming from Josh over at Titanium.
One of RJ's kids.
One.
Josh is the guy who forgot to put
allegedly
the RJ slideshow up in the back, right?
He did. He definitely did.
Yeah, shout out to Josh, man. Don't be a lady, man. Shout out to Josh.
Question number 6 here. We got, what is the most underappreciated position in real estate? Start us off, RJ.
Oh, man. I'm going to go with the dispo manager. I think that is probably the aspect that no one likes to talk about. It probably gets the least amount of attention from all of us internet marketers, like CJ said, all of us that are, we love to talk about the close. We love to talk about marketing and what we're doing to get all these properties under contract. But the checks are made when you sell the property. And very rarely, like, you go look at almost everyone's YouTube channel, that's like the least amount of content that is put out is selling the properties when the check is actually made. And so I think that's probably the most underrated position.
All right. Valid point. You don't see a lot on the dispo side. All right, Steve, what are your thoughts?
I would say it's the lead manager. I think the lead manager has so much responsibility and they bring so much to the organization. They're the ones that have to do the follow-up calls. They have to keep in touch with the homeowners, seeing every month how they're doing, how things are going, how are they doing with the struggle they had. So they had to do the worst work where they had to get screamed at the most, generally speaking, and they don't get the most amount of money, right? The glory goes to the acquisition manager. And then to RJ's point, the dispo manager, when we close a deal, we're celebrating, right? But no one ever celebrates the lead manager. And that's the person that has to build a relationship with the homeowner to stay in touch with them for the next 3, 15, 24 months to make sure we bring a signed contract to the organization.
Unless you're RJ, you just have them locked up in under 60 seconds. So, I'm just going to throw that part out there, a little bit different perspective. All right, Brewer, what's your thoughts?
I think it's transaction coordinating. I think I think dispo does get celebrated, right? Like there might not be a lot of people that talk about it or market about it, because for the most part in the last 3 years, selling a property has been relatively easy. It was very transactional. If you put a decent deal out there, someone would gobble it up. There wasn't a ton of maybe skill that was required. And I think that's tightening up right now. And people have put a lot more energy around dispo. But in our organization, from the time the acquisitions, who I think is the most celebrated, gets the contract, TC deals with a lot of the customer questions about paperwork. They're dealing with title companies, especially in some of these areas that we talked about before, where you have closing attorneys, right, that don't return calls. They don't reply to emails. Sellers are trying to back out, except on RJ's deals. And, the TC person is the one that has to keep everybody together. They got to handle all of the dispositions agents, messy, incomplete paperwork. They got to handle all of the acquisitions agents, incomplete paperwork. And they are the one that actually delivers it from, hey, we have a contract, to the day that the dispo guy gets celebrated and paid. I'm a big fan of TC, and I don't think they get enough shine.
All right. True. TC. They're the real MVPs. All right, CJ, what's your thoughts?
I think Eric and Steve had good answers. I agree with both of them. RJ, but
did RJ do that?
But for me, I'm definitely going to say the integrator. Shout out to Deandra Mine. Man, when you're the integrator, you never get the glory, you never get the high fives, you never get the pats on the back. You never get interviewed on Steve Trank's podcast. Nobody's celebrating you all day, every day, and you're the glue. Like, you're the glue man. Like, you're the person that's making sure that everything's going the way it's supposed to go. Is the lead manager on point? Is the sales team on point? Is the TC team on point? Is the dispo team on point? Hey, did everybody get their check? Did we get the systems implemented correctly? So I definitely would say the integrator, man. Integrators need more love. Everybody wants to be on the highlight reel and the person celebrated, but most of us wouldn't be able to do anything without our integrator, for sure. What's RJ without Cassie? Imagine RJ without Cassie, man. He'd be thumbtacking over here, hanging up my stuff.
For the record, I have had one integrator on the podcast.
One. How many out of how many episodes?
300 some.
The forgotten warrior, man. The integrator, man.
For the record, CJ is right. The integrator is important. Eric is right. The TC is important. Steve, after his amazing moment he had the question prior, comes in with the worst answer ever. Lead managers are worthless, bro. That is the most meaningless position of all time. What is the acquisitions manager's job? Like,
to lock up contracts.
Just to
buy
hit the ball
houses.
off the tee? My God, how do y'all not have
houses
contracts if you have someone just teeing them up for them?
Hit the gun.
If you want to run a profitable organization, it's up to you, man. I don't care how you run your business.
Oh, man. I hate lead manager more. That's a question for another PTD. Let's talk about that. Should you have a lead manager? Shout out to all the lead managers. I'm a closer.
See, by definition, he just proved the most unappreciated role.
Hey, RJ, if you don't have a lead manager, you are the lead manager, buddy. So your freaking acquisitions agents are receptionists, basically.
They close deals.
Oh man, we're not gonna let RJ and Brewer go at it for 15 minutes like last time. We're not gonna go
Now
down
it's
that
down to
road.
15 minutes. It was 45 minutes at the beginning.
Hang on a second. I
I
just want to say this, right? Hang on.
23,
RJ, you're full of
now
shit.
it's 15.
RJ, you're full of shit. You don't know.
There it is.
What is,
No, dude, they said RJ's the cold caller, the texter. They said he's the
Yeah,
he's the
that's
door
why-
knocker.
That's why he was probably offended when I made the pajamas joke. Right? He said, hold on for a second. I do that 3 days a week. That's why that's why you had that shift on the Closers Olympics at 3 a.m. because you were in your VA second job.
I didn't know that in y'all's businesses, the acquisitions manager literally called the sellers and say, "What's your email? Let me send you the contract."
what are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Oh, they have to
He's
follow up
clueless.
and ask them how they're doing and what's going on with the house. Like,
Yep, that's
bro,
right.
Are you doing that, RJ?
Yes.
Oh,
You're
good.
talking
That's
to
what
a
the acquisitions manager does.
No,
Yeah.
that's not it at all.
Okay. Magically, this is how I close more deals than everybody else. So. Maybe I should hire someone else to fuck shit up before me.
So
There
again,
it is.
thereby proving lead manager most underappreciated position.
Yeah, I guess when you go to upload this one, is you got to hit that 18 plus. Button.
For real, man. I like the PTD just leveled up. We went for it. I'm not mad at it. I am gonna say, because I personally agree with this, I'm giving the point to Brewer, transaction coordinator, most underappreciated on the planet. Not saying the integrator, not saying that. Well, we're not going to get into the lead manager side of things because that's like a whole thing. You know, all of them are underappreciated at some level, probably, but the TC probably the most. All right. So that being said, if I can do simple mathematics, coming back off of his 1 week hiatus, CJ is our winner this week. Good job to you. Way to bring some absolute fire today. We liked it. You called everybody out. We're going to go ahead and sign off in just a few. We're going to go ahead and let everybody say goodbye. We'll start with you, CJ. Say bye to the people.
It's always a good time. Look, I feel like every time I take a week off, I come back and win. Maybe I'll have to think of that as a strat. RJ is such a strategist. Maybe I'll think about implementing that. But it's good to be back. Shout out to RJ and his PJs. Shout out to Steve being wrong. Shout out to Brewer being right most of the time. But RJ just annoys him so much he can't stand it. And I just love to see it. I just love to see it. I like to be here for it. I think it's great. I had a phenomenal time today, man. It's good to see you guys and fun as always, man. And peace out, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, CJ. All right, RJ, say bye to the people.
Shout out to Potter's realtor judging there at the end, with the TC being the most underrated position. Never seen a more realtor answer right there. To all the other cerebral pelegics that I offended at the beginning of the episode, I apologize. I'm actually surprised you even understood what I was talking about. It was good to have you back, CJ. And always fun hanging out with you, Brewer. Fuck you, Potter. And
oh shit! Looks like RJ's go for a goose egg next week. Sounds great. All right, Steve, say bye to the people.
Fun show as always. I'm glad we got to bring the heat. The pre-show banter did not disappoint. Some feelings got hurt. It is what it is. It was a good time. Hopefully you guys got a lot of value today.
Last, certainly not least, Brewer, say bye to the people.
Potter, I feel sorry for you, dude. That was an unfair attack on you. And in support of you, I just want to say, can't wait to see another one of your Facebook posts where I can see your molars.
Good. Good. Appreciate
Really
the
awesome.
support.
Listen, this was fun. Every time we get the questions, you guys are lying. It was not an hour before the show. It was at 2:17 Eastern Standard Time, which is about 3 minutes before we generally log on. But whoever did the questions this week, I think RJ owned 2 of them, right? CJ chimed in with like the MLS thing that he's really sensitive about. So whoever's doing that, I would suggest you probably fall back a little bit. He's on the edge about the MLS wholesaling thing. I would suggest you no longer poke the bear. And I look forward to, I got a call with Steve coming up soon. I don't know. Him and I, every once in a while, get on a phone call where we talk to each other and act like we respect and like each other. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, man. I didn't lie to you. I promise you it would be a good show. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We will see you guys again next week. Have a good one.